Even though I, and what seemed to be the rest of the gaming community, enjoyed Dead Space 2, Dead Space 3 seemed like it would be the victim of diminishing returns before its release on February 8, 2013. While Dead Space 2 averaged an 89 on Metacritic, the game was a clear indication that the series was shifting its focus away from horror. Game Informer's headline even states, "Great as a game, lacking as a horror." Jim Sterling, whose love of the series can be seen in the episode of his Jimquisition video series entitled Dead Space, the best new IP of this generation, even says that the changes done in Dead Space 3 damaged its charm and ultimately gave it an 8 out of 10 compared to the 9.5 out of 10 for Dead Space 2. Almost immediately upon booting up Dead Space 3, the changes are obvious. In the first two games, shooting felt like a means to an end. You were trying to survive, and blasting your way through the hordes of necromorphs was a necessary step. Dead Space 3 introduces human enemies that shoot back, and while it doesn't break the experience like it did in Resident Evil 6, it made the game feel like a third-person shooter first and an action horror game second. More than ever before, combat feels like a chore. Weapons devolve into trying to craft the single best combination and sticking to it, as the universal ammo count removes every shred of tension ammo management adds. Introducing yet another indestructible enemy, this time as another seemingly throwaway encounter, was not only a waste, but an unnecessary retread that only detracted from the overall experience. Dead Space 3's biggest change to the franchise was the inclusion of co-op, and it was definitely a strange addition considering that co-op was one of the main reasons people had an issue with Resident Evil 5. Matthew Rory, formerly of GameSpot and Obsidian, said in a blog post titled The Curious Co-op of Dead Space 3 that it was almost as if Visceral created two different games, as the single-player playthrough gave very little indication that it was a co-op experience at all. He also questioned the decision to include co-op in a horror franchise, as the more people in the room, the less scary it can be. Interestingly enough, Metro reported on a discussion at GDC between writer Susan O'Connor and Dead Space 3 producer Chuck Beaver. After O'Connor shared a story where the publisher forced her to rework a game's script from co-op to single-player, Beaver commented, "Oh really? I had to go from single-player to co-op in the middle of production. How about that?" Co-op, while not a welcome change to the franchise, was implemented well enough that it could have been a welcome addition. John Carver's mental breakdowns and the varying degrees of insanity that both characters experience present a co-op campaign that stands out in a market flooded with just yet another dude bro to shoot waves of enemies alongside. Though it's John Carver, Ellie's ragtag crew, and the main antagonist Danik that present the biggest problems with Dead Space 3. The plot. Ellie's crew serve as various red shirts to kill off as a way to desperately try and increase tension, or throw in an unnecessary love triangle to try and make you care about these poorly written characters. John Carver, especially in single player, seems like a total asshole. When he does pop up, I wanted nothing more than for him to go back to wherever the hell he came from. I did read the Awakening comic that explains his mood, but if it's never even mentioned in the game, and if the majority of your audience isn't going to read it, it can't be assumed or used as an appropriate character motivation. Danik was just an obnoxious cartoon villain, and his army of insane devotees were brilliantly taken down in a penny arcade comic. The late-game plot twist takes a story I once enjoyed and strips away from it what I loved and whitewashes the rest of it into the same plot we saw 3 times last year in very prominent titles. A poor story can be forgiven, but only when the gameplay is just too damn fun to care. Dead Space 3 drops the ball in both courts, and while it isn't a bad game, it is perfectly functional and fun at times. Those missteps added up into a mediocre overall experience. If you're still on the fence and you genuinely enjoyed Dead Space 1 and 2, I would recommend playing 3. There is something here among the mediocrity that you can find and cherish, but this is a new direction for the franchise, and one that will hopefully die here. I really hope that the complaints and lackluster sales inspire EA, even though they said they're shelving the franchise for now, to bring Dead Space back to the style we loved. Please, EA, don't destroy Dead Space like Capcom did with Resident Evil. No one wants that. At the very least, we give Dead Space 3 a 3 out of 5.